going to bring you our current Wright County and Twin Cities real estate data to help you out whether you're thinking about buying or selling. We're also going to briefly talk about inspections and give you some information if you've never purchased a house before or you haven't purchased a house in a long time. I really think you'll find that helpful. I'm Erica Carlson. I'm with a boutique brokerage called Bricks Real Estate. I help people buy and sell real estate around our Twin Cities area. I specialize in the Western Metro. If you learn anything new today, I'd love for you to subscribe, whether you're finding me on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. I'd love to have you join our growing community. If you have any questions during this video or you're ready to get started, you can get a hold of me by clicking the link provided in the paragraph. If you choose the first link on top, it will send you to my calendar where you can pick a time that works best for you. Let's begin today by looking at our data, and then at the end, I will bring you that inspection information I promised you. Let's start by looking at the Twin Cities at large in terms of some data points, and then we will move into Wright in just a moment. So as you can see on my screen, we are at a 6.89 for our market meter. Now, what that means is that we're trying to determine, are we more of a seller or buyer's market or kind of equal? This matters to both people that are buying homes and selling, because if you're buying, you want to get an idea of how competitive it is. And at a 6.89, it's still a seller's market. It's not the most extreme or severe. I think that the interest rates hovering around that 7 does keep things a little bit more mellow than if the interest rates were to come down at some point. But as we move into summer, I would predict that star is going to move further to the left. And so if you are a buyer, keep that in mind, that it's going to cool as we move out of May, and of course, it feels like, we just started May. It's May 8th, but it goes by so quickly. So even after Memorial Day, it might be a slightly better time for you to shop for a house. On the flip side, if you are a seller and you're on the fence or you're thinking about how to time it, my high recommendation here is to get your house on the market before Memorial Day weekend, which obviously doesn't give you a lot of time, because coming out of the Mother's Day weekend coming up and then Memorial, there's just not a lot of time to hit it where you're not landing on a holiday. And as a person who's had a birthday in May, my entire life, obviously, I'm telling you, people are not in town for Mother's Day. People are not in town for Memorial Day. And then we're pushing into grad parties and celebrations for the end of the school year. So there's just a lot going on. Minnesotans love their summers, so it is a harder time of the year to sell a house. Not that you should be upset by that. Now, here's the caveat. If interest rates come down this summer, or we have these little pockets and moments where it does, buyers are going to seize those opportunities. So you've got the buyers that are going to jump in when those interest rates come down. So there's really no crystal ball here. We don't really know what's going to happen. We definitely could have a nice hot summer in terms of real estate if those interest rates come down. So nothing is a hard and fast rule in this business. As you can see to the right, the inventory's up 13.3% over last year. So there's more selection for those of you that might have been frustrated last year. You may notice that you have a little more selection than you did before. Average days on market is 20. Keep that with a grain of salt, because if you're shopping the condo market, the land market, waterfront market, what part of town? I mean, I don't know where you're hearing this. So are you actually on the St. Paul side of things? I mean, that's going to maybe be different than the Minneapolis side or even individual suburbs. So, it's like, what do we mean by market? This is just the general Twin Cities metro area. So you always want to ask your agent about your shopping criteria. What does that mean? 30-year fixed rate is hovering around 7.125. It bounces up and down by the day, by the hour. I'm not a lender. This is a base rate, no discount points. So you're going to want to work with your loan officer to figure out where you're going to fall. And until you lock, they never can tell you exactly where it's going to land. And so with home insurance prices going up too, you really want to work closely, assuming you're getting a mortgage, because these things are affecting affordability. They're affecting like where you can actually price and shop. And so, of course, it's easier to be more conservative in case some of these numbers end up becoming a little higher by the time you lock and move forward with the actual purchase. We have 511 active properties with no contingencies, 445 if we reduce those that might be under contract, whether that they've got an inspection contingency, a house to sell, etc. So the big thing here is like, let's look at trends, right? So the fact that we hit the 500s, it's like, when have we last seen this much inventory? Well, I have to go back to, it looks like the early December. It's been quite a while. And you can see now 500s are pretty consistent throughout the summer. So it's probably like actually low, but again, it's showing you we're moving into June. We're at the tail end of the true spring market. Again, Memorial Day kind of marks where it generally ends, but interest rates again could affect that. Pending's 269, so it's just a slight, the tiniest of decreases. But again, we're looking for trends. So it's like, was May 1st our peak there? Maybe we'll have to watch that. 184 for closings. Well, that's up 10 over last week, which is up the 10 before. So again, we're looking for trends, which is the highest it's been in quite a long time. Okay. Now I love my showings per week per listing data. Let's focus in on that if I can get back here. We are at 3.2 for Wright and 6.5 for Hennepin. I swore I changed that and it changed it back. What it keeps changing it to hens. That's hilarious. I'll have to type it out. 3.2. Okay, that means 3 showings per week per listing in the 250 to 500K range. 6.5. Well, of course, you can't have a half showing. You're either in the house or not. These are averages, so that's a part of the problem here. Is it, it's just, again, watching trends, which is higher than last week for Hennepin. Wright County is kind of staying pretty consistent. We've been really kind of in that 3s. We were in the 2s before. I would predict that Wright County is going to continue to slow down as we go into summer. Same with Hennepin, but you can see it's significantly more activity. So they get about 6-7 showings per week per listing, where we get 3. And then, comparing to our Twin Cities data, we're at 28 median for days on market and 44.6 for average. Now, something I do differently than that other previous data you saw, I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm wrong about that, because I don't pull that other data. I get that from somebody at my office. Mine is for the last 7 days of houses that have been in pending status. So these are like the actual properties that are selling. And the reason this is significant, if you're curious, is because if I just look generally at everything that's on the market, well, we all know some of these houses sit and sit and sit, whether they're overpriced, whether they have like a lot of conditional issues, and then the price doesn't really reflect how much work that house needs. And so what happens is these properties that are the outliers, the one that sit for a long time, or maybe there's just not as much demand for that type of property, whatever it is, right? Like only so many people can purchase a house that's over 5 million. Well, if I were to include that as an example, then it would throw my data, because then we would be like, oh, well, look, it takes a really long time to sell a house. No, it doesn't. We want to look at ones that are like actually selling and versus like everything that's on the market. So I hope that makes sense. Of course, now my phone is chirping at me and it's distracting me. If you do have any questions about data that you're interested in, I'm always happy to supply something that like individually is what you're looking for. And so sometimes that's a particular city or it's a particular segment of the market. Again, like maybe you're only interested in townhouses or condos. These can be radically different numbers than what I'm showing you here, which is everything at large. If you've never purchased a house before, or you haven't purchased one in a long time, I think you're going to find this information really helpful, because even though the topic of inspections isn't like maybe the most exciting, there are some elements I'm going to share with you that you might not know without talking to an active and busy real estate agent. So the first thing, and this isn't my data, but I follow what's called a transaction company. So they just do the paperwork for real estate agents, which means they it's not good or bad, but they're just going to see like a lot more. And their data for the last month, last couple of weeks has been people are waiving inspections about 32% of the time. When you're ready to purchase a house, you're going to want to get an idea from your real estate agent. What is the norm? Not that it necessarily needs to influence what you're going to do, but I can't pretend like it's not going to either. And I am borrowing information and I'm taking it from my Smart Home Buyer book, which you can download for free. I will not know you're downloading it. You can certainly reach out to me and I can send you a copy. It's just a PDF. I give it to everybody I work with. And this is a chapter in that book that I am sharing with you today. Skipping a home inspection is never a great idea. There's a reason that we give out a pamphlet talking about the importance of getting an inspection and make sure people understand it is not the same as an appraisal. You'll often hear people interchange these words. Appraisal is value ordered by a lender to get an idea if the price you're paying for the house is accurate to the market conditions, etc. An inspection is for you. And one thing that I try to prepare them for is you go from this high of being super excited about your new house, and a week later or a couple days later, you're getting an inspection and all you're being told is a bunch of problems with the house. So it's definitely like a roller coaster where it's like, now let's point out all the things that are a problem. A good real estate agent is going to point these things out the best that they can during the initial showing. However, we're not always flipping on every water, light switch. We're not digging into the furnace, things like that. So this is why we're always going to recommend an inspection. When you can elect for one. Important thing to know is that it's a contingency. So this is a word that means it's an exception. Like I can get out of the purchase, and not that we want to use it like a cold feet clause. There is no such thing as a cold feet clause. Like the perception here is that if you're writing an offer, it's a contract to purchase. But in the event you're getting an inspection, the contingency is that if I find something major, something I didn't know from your disclosure and from my walkthrough, I have the ability to flat out walk away. The other alternative, of course, is to renegotiate terms. Sometimes that is in asking the seller to help you pay for your closing costs, a part of it. Part of it might be lowering the price of the house. So there's different ways to handle that. So it's repairs or money is typically what happens. So when you're at the point of hiring an inspector, a lot of people will just ask their real estate agent to pick somebody, and that's certainly one choice. When you're in that position, no matter what you decide, you don't want to necessarily pick a friend who has flipped a couple houses, or maybe, a relative that's an engineer or a contractor. You want to pick somebody who does about 100 plus inspections a year. We have, kind of a saying in our business that the cheapest isn't going to be the best, right? Like we can always relate that to different industries. And so you want to be mindful of, maybe the question for your real estate agent is, who would you use if you were purchasing a house? Who's your, favorite inspector? A quality inspector is not just going to give you those surface level cosmetic type of things, and those things often should be overlooked. One thing I'm always telling people is if there is a hole in the wall the day you looked at the house, that's probably not an appropriate item and not something like if the inspector brought to your attention that should be noteworthy. What we're interested in is things that were not obvious to us, like ungrounded electrical. Negative grading, unvented fixtures is pretty common. Furnaces that might need some, like repair or updating. The key to this part of the transaction is to focus on things that are safety issues or that are just not common of houses of a certain age. So, not to derail too much, but like asking somebody to bring a house from like 100 years ago up to current code isn't exactly something that you would want to ask for. If, the first thing you should be asking yourself is, are you comfortable buying a 100-year-old house? And you should predict that not every component of the house would be up to code, because it's not broke. It doesn't necessarily need to be fixed. And then putting that on the current owner isn't necessarily always appropriate in those situations. Something people don't talk a lot about is like how many items to ask for repair. Where's that line, right? And I've tried to focus on, it's supposed to be unexpected new information. And, kind of a general rule of thumb is probably no more than 6 items. If you're hitting a more than 6, I think it's probably time to take pause and wonder if this house is appropriate for you at all. You have to keep in mind that it's a negotiation. The seller certainly doesn't have to give you everything you're asking for. And that's why when there's more than 6 items, the seller may no longer feel like you're necessarily feeling the house either and want to walk away. So while the seller can't technically, send you a cancellation because your repair items are too much, they don't have to say yes to anything either. And so if you truly want to move forward with the purchase, you want to be very thoughtful about what you're asking, how much you're asking for. The last thing I'll share for you is you don't have to ask for anything at all. The inspection report can just be for you. We call it a honey-do list, right? This just could be something that you use after you purchase the house. And now it's a guide for you to decide, which items do I feel like are more important and less important. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Wednesday morning. I will be back next Wednesday, as I always am. I am inconsistent on the time I upload because it depends on my schedule, but I always try to talk to you guys every Wednesday and give you new real estate information. I will have Molly Zimmerman back to talk to us about some financing. Have a fantastic week.